Good morning, grade twos. Today we'll continue our story about settlers going westward on the Oregon Trail to live a new life. Less than an hour after darkness fell, when most of the travelers were sleeping in their tents or wagons, the wind began to rise, whooshing across the plains. Thomas Lawrence, who was watching the cattle, could hear a rumbling off in the distance. Suddenly, a flash of lightning split the night sky. The next instant, a blinding rain fell on the sleeping pioneers. Then, out of nowhere, the wind blew so hard that half the tents blew over. Those who had been in tents ran to their wagons, squeezing into any space they could find amid the furniture and supplies. Still, everyone was already soaking wet, and even tying the canvas flaps shut could not keep some rain from blowing in. Inside the Lawrence family's wagon, everyone huddled together, shivering. 9-year-old Barbara said, "Folks call these wagons prairie schooners, Mama, as if they were schooner ships sailing the wide open land instead of the sea. I didn't really think the schooner ships and our prairie schooner were that much alike. But with the wind rocking the wagon back and forth, I feel as if are really at the sea." 6-year-old Abigail whispered, "I wish we were home." At that moment, the canvas flaps opened and Thomas Lawrence joined his family inside the wagon. Abigail asked, "Papa, why aren't you with the cattle?" He explained, "The first lightning bolt spooked them so much that they ran off. We'll have to round them up after the storm." After a cold, miserable night, the morning dawned cold and gray. Abigail awoke to the sound of a bell. Peering out, she exclaimed, "Why, it's Snowbell! She's found her way back." Sure enough, the Lawrence milk cow was standing outside the wagon, ready to be milked. Mr. Lawrence told his wife, "Patricia, have one of the boys milk her. I have an idea." Mr. Lawrence walked heavily through thick mud to Captain Ward's wagon. Captain Ward was already up, helping other people. "Our milk cow came home," Mr. Lawrence reported. "If we can follow her tracks, maybe we'll find some of the other animals." Captain Ward agreed, and so on horseback. Thomas Lawrence and some other men followed the cow's tracks back to where she had been. Beyond the grove of trees, they found the missing animals calmly chewing the wet prairie grass as if nothing had happened. Mr. Lawrence rode back over to his wife near the family wagon and joked, "Well, that was certainly fun." She replied, "Let's hope we've seen the worst of the Oregon Trail." But 2 months later, the trail presented one last challenge to the pioneers. They were crossing the high mountains of the eastern part of the Oregon Territory on their way to the Green Valley beyond. That day, Captain Jeremiah Ward and Thomas Lawrence stood together and looked down at the steep mountain trail ahead. The captain said, "We have to take this steep path down. There's no other way. If we turn back to take the southern trail, we'd lose too much time. Then we'd never make it out of these mountains before the winter snow hits us." Mr. Lawrence agreed. "It is the only way, but it will be difficult. When I scouted ahead," he said, "I found that the forest crowds in too closely for a wagon to travel on either side of the trail, so we must take the trail itself. At least this extremely steep stretch is fairly short, only about 160 feet. Then the trail levels out and is in good condition again. Once we make it down the hill, the trail will be much easier." Fortunately, Captain Ward had a plan. "Tell everyone to unhitch the oxen from the front of the wagons and reconnect them to the back. We'll walk with them on the path on either side of the trail, and the oxen will be able to hold the weight of each wagon so that it doesn't slide down." After the wagons are down, our families can follow on foot. We'll bring the herds down last. Half an hour later, the first wagon started down the steep trail. 6 oxen, attached to the wagon by ropes or chains, strained to keep the Lawrence wagon under control on a bumpy, uneven surface. Watching from the top of the hill was Mrs. Lawrence and the children as they watched the wagon descend. Mrs. Lawrence said, "It will be a miracle if my china doesn't shatter to pieces with all that bouncing and banging." After what seemed like a lifetime, there came a cry from the bottom of the incline. "We're down, and everything's in one piece." Everybody cheered, and Captain Ward ordered the men to move the rest of the wagons. By the end of the day, everyone had made it down to the bottom. That night, camping beside a clean, flowing stream, Captain Ward announced, "Tomorrow we'll be out of these mountains, and then we're almost home." 10 days later, Captain Ward led his wagon train out of the forest and into a lush green valley spread out as far as the eye could see. As each wagon emerged from the trees and each family saw the valley ahead, everyone fell silent. This was the place that the travelers had dreamed about and worked to reach through 6 months of hardships and laughter, rain and hail, wind and heat.